friends, Tracy here from the Sewing Channel. Do you want to learn how to free motion quilt? I know I wanted to learn, but I had no idea what to do, which way to go, what thread, what needle, whatever. Someone please tell me, right? So I decided to make a video to be that someone to let you all know what my journey was so that you could maybe learn a few things along the way. I will take you all the way up until the very end where you can get on your machine and start practicing. Let me show you my very first quilt that I made free motion quilting. It was this beauty right here. Some of you might remember this quilt from my UFO video. It was one of my daughter's quilts that I needed to finish. Well, initially, it was probably 5-6 years ago now, I can't remember. I did a quilt as you go quilt where it was just these blocks that I did separately and then I sashed them together. Mind you, this was the first time I'd ever done that and the first time that I'd ever free motion quilted on an actual quilt. But boy, let me tell you, I had more fun on this quilt and you can see that fun.
Huge thank you to Lori, Peggy G, Pam at Craft On, and so forth for keeping me energized with some coffee. And thank you, Robin B, for that super thanks. I appreciate it so much.
As you look at all of the free motion quilting that I went literally nuts free motion quilting. Hopefully you can see some close-ups here that I'm going to insert. Even though I had no clue what I was doing, I started. And that's what some of you need to do out there. Just start. My stitches were so close together and I just made like minute free motion quilting. I don't even know. I was just trying any design underneath the sun on this quilt. One special thing, every block that I made has a tiny heart in it for my daughter to find, and I thought that was super sweet. Some of these blocks, I couldn't tell you where the heart is. These stitches are so bad. I'm looking at these stitches. They are so bad. So bad. They're overlapping. They're doing their own thing. There's skipped stitches in there. There's... But it doesn't matter because you have to start somewhere. Look at this big quilt that I used all this fabric on and I free motion quilted it. I show you this quilt to help you. And if that embarrasses me in the meantime, that's okay. I'm not easily offended, so we're good. This was another quilt that I free motion quilted and have a video on it. It was my quilt in a day, and it's like a 3 or 4 part series. I can't remember now, but it's out there. This quilt was very special. It was my first scrappy quilt that I made, and it was really a pleasure to make this quilt. I knew that I wanted big, huge borders on it though in white. So that I could do some fun stuff. So I just measured out some designs and different things on it, and I love the way it turned out. It was fun. Oh, I love all my quilts, I think. So then there was this quilt right here where I did the medallions within the little hexies, and it's one of my favorites too. I just love it. And all this was done from my brain and my sewing machine, my home domestic sewing machine. Don't have time to share with you all of the quilts that I free motion quilted. I just hand-picked a few just to kind of give you an idea of my progress over the years. This is my strawberry quilt, my strawberry gingham quilt. Not sure if you can see the whole thing or not, but it was so much fun to make. And it was just a bunch of feathers and echoing, and honestly, it was the first time I ever made such a big feather, and I was nervous. It's a little wonky in some spots and a little chopped up on the stitches, but it's all learning to me, and I love to learn. I showed you that first quilt to let you know that you don't have to be a professional from the very beginning. It takes time. And that first quilt, as happy as I was to quilt all that, even though there are a ton of mistakes in it, and I cringe when I look at it and when I show you all it. It just shows the journey of progress. But there's no way you're going to have a journey of progress unless you start. Enough talking already. Let's get busy learning how to free motion quilt on our domestic home sewing machine. Before I get into needle and thread where it concerns free motion quilting, you need to know something. I am not here to push any one type of thread or any one type of needle. This is my particular journey, and that journey may not be yours, and that's okay. I'm just sharing with you what I went through to get to the point where I am in my free motion quilting journey. Some quilters and sewists, they may have 10 different needles for 10 different threads for 10 different uses, but that's not me. And that's okay too. We are all on our own individual journey, and I'm only here just to share with you what worked for me. So that's all I'm going to say about that. I'm going to talk about needle and thread together. Needle and thread work together in tandem to get the job done. I wish at the beginning that someone would have said to me, you need to have the right thread for the right needle in order for it all to work right, so you have that first issue that you may come in contact with under control right out the gate. So at the beginning of my free motion quilting journey, I started with a cotton thread because that's what everyone in the quilting world told me that I needed to use if I wanted to free motion quilt. I'm here to tell you, friends, that that was very wrong for anybody to say to anybody, especially a brand new free motion quilter. Now, I'm not here to hurt anybody's feelings. I'm really not. But you need to know that there are alternatives to thread when it comes to free motion quilting. So what was wrong with the cotton thread for me? Well, let me tell you, it was very linty. It caused my machine to ball up with all of this fuzz. And I'm not one that wants to constantly clean and maintenance and clean and maintenance. So that was one of the things that really I did not like. The other thing, as I was sewing with cotton thread, it seemed to drag in my machine, almost like it wasn't smooth. It wasn't as rough as like sandpaper or anything like that, but it was just a feeling that I had as I was sewing and free motion quilting. And I didn't like it. It didn't have to do with tension either. My tension was perfect. Oh, we have a friend. Come see Mimi. Oh, careful, baby, the cords. Come here, baby. Oh, yeah, big girl. Say hi. Say hi. This is my baby right here. Okay, sorry about that, friends. As I was doing my research on the thread and the needles, I came across Angela Walters. I mean, she is like the queen of free motion quilting, right? She's the one that mentions the polyester thread. A light bulb went off in my head, and I'm like, yeah, that's the problem. I need polyester thread. I started off with Superior So Fine 50 weight thread. What you need to know about the weight when it comes to thread. The higher the weight number, the thinner the thread. The lower the weight number, the thicker the thread. So this thread being 50 weight is a little bit finer than most threads, and I really enjoyed this thread for many years. With this thread, I used the Superior Top Stitch Needle 80-12. Those two combinations for me worked for years, and I was able to produce all sorts of free motion quilting designs on my quilts. Then I bought my Juki TL18. This machine right here goes so fast and produces so much friction when it comes to sewing. I'd never had a sewing machine that sewed as fast as this machine. Well, with my So Fine thread, it tended to shred my thread, and that was no good. And so I knew I needed to jump back into the thread and needle arena and figure out what I was going to use now. So I decided on a heavier weight thread, 40 weight. Omni 40 weight thread with a larger needle than what I was using previously. Remember, I had an 80-12 top stitch titanium needle. Now what I needed to go to was the 90-14 top stitch titanium needle. And when I put those two combinations together, that worked in this machine. And I haven't looked back since. So this is my go-to. Why a top stitch needle? Well, it's sharp, but it's not too sharp. So it's not going to cut through your fabric. You're not going to see holes within the weaving of your fabric. It has an elongated eye on it. These machines run at a very high speed, so that just gives it some room within that eye to play with. The titanium part of it, well, this needle lasts a really long time in your sewing machine because of that coating. You get about 80 hours plus of sewing time with each needle. That's a win-win. And if you have a needle that's working for you already, don't just run out and try mine just to try it. Keep using what works for you. The next thing I'm about to say, most sewists and quilters are really shocked about. I use this needle and thread for absolutely everything in my sewing room. I don't care if I'm piecing. I don't care if I'm free motion quilting. I could be fixing something, sewing something together, unless it's a knit or something like that. Then I would go to a ballpoint needle. Otherwise, this right here is my combo, same thread, same needle. I never have to think about, oh yeah, I need to buy this needle for that needle for this thread, that thread. Oh my word, I can't function like that. So once I found the combo that worked for me, I stick with it. The final thoughts on the thread and the needle. Make sure that you have the compatible thread with the compatible needle. The lower the thread weight number, the thicker. The higher the thread weight number, the thinner. The lower needle number, you can use a thinner thread in. The higher needle number, you can use a thicker thread in. I hope that clears some stuff up about needle and thread. So what type of free motion quilting sewing foot should you use on your domestic sewing machine? Probably the free motion quilting foot that did come with your machine. Now you may not know that it's a free motion quilting foot because a lot of times they will call it a darning foot or a hopping foot within your sewing machine manual. So you'll want to look for that. Typically it has a spring on it and it does have a bar on the top of it. That bar goes across the top of the area here where I actually tighten up my needle, but yours may be in a different position. So you're going to want to check your manual to see exactly how you install yours. If by chance your sewing machine does not come with any foot like this, you still may be able to free motion quilt. And you will have to do your own research on your own machine. I can't tell you what's best for your machine. You have to look that up for yourself. I will tell you that there are free motion quilting feet that you can buy online, and they're relatively inexpensive. And if you do your research, you can find the right one that actually fits your sewing machine. Take a look at this picture right here. You see there's an open toe, a closed toe, and then there's a funny looking free motion quilting foot. Well, all three of these are indeed free motion quilting feet. The open toe one actually allows you to see the thread, and you have easy access to the thread that way as well. With that closed-toed foot, it might be a little bit more difficult for you to grab the thread when you drop your needle before you begin, when you have to pull your threads up from the bobbin. That one on the far right there, the thicker free motion quilting foot, that is for ruler work. And this video today is not about anything with rulers. I just wanted you to know that when you see that really thick metal sewing machine foot, that is for ruler work. Come on closer in here and I'm going to show you how I attach my free motion quilting foot. So I'm just going to lift my presser foot up, and then I'm going to
unscrew the presser foot that's on there. I don't typically unscrew mine all the way, just partial way, just enough to get it off. Let me give you a major tip here. After you take off your regular presser foot, set this aside where you know it's not going to get lost. Trust me, I've lost sewing machine feet in my sewing room before. Maybe as I was tossing stuff out into the garbage, a presser foot might have been in there and I didn't realize it and it got thrown away. I haven't been able to find a couple of my really good presser feet. So now what you're going to do is, well, this is still in the up position, your presser foot. You can see here, down, now it's up. You can see here, mine has these little grooves that come up there, sort of catches this bar right here. And this hole is where that screw goes into. So I'm just going to slide this in and over so that it catches in there. With my right hand, I'm going to hold the free motion quilting foot snug up where it needs to go. And then I'm just going to finger tighten the screw here. And then I'm able to let go. And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to tighten this. You never want to just finger tighten this. You want to go in with your tool and make sure that that's tight. I want you to take a look right here in this area. This is where my needle gets tightened. There's the little groove where I put the screwdriver in to tighten it. When I put my presser foot up and down, I want you to notice that area. You see this bar right here. I don't know if you can see it. Oh dear. It's right there, my fingernails on it. That is part of the free motion quilting foot. See it go up and down? Typically, that bar on all of the free motion quilting feet need to be above the bar here. Just an FYI, but do what your manual tells you to do, please. During your free motion quilting project, it's a really good practice to come in and check to make sure that your needle is still tightened in and that your presser foot is still tightened in. Sometimes these machines go so fast and vibrate so much that you really do need to check to make sure. You don't want a needle falling out, and you definitely don't want your free motion quilting foot to come off. After your free motion quilting foot is all snug where it needs to be, then it's time to come over where your feed dog lever is. You'll know it's a feed dog lever by these little teeth or mountains. That's what they look like to me anyways, little mountains. They're typically located on the back of your machine or in the front of your machine, like mine here. And there's an arrow or a slider button that coincides with the feed dogs going up and the feed dogs going down. You see my arrow right here. It's pointing toward the mountains with the line going horizontal through them. That tells me that my feed dogs are up and they're engaged. And the feed dogs just pull the fabric through. That's why we need them in the down position underneath that line. That line right there represents our plate, that metal plate our bobbin is under. Our feed dogs are down underneath that plate, so they're not going to come up and bother us when we're free motion quilting. So what you want to do is just take your lever and position it so that the feed dogs are under that plate, just like that. The next thing you want to do is come up to where your stitch length is. Now you could have a computerized machine or you could have just a dial like mine right here. Whatever it's set at, you want to set your stitch length all the way to 0. We are going to be the ones that produce that stitch length. There are definitely a few things that I personally keep by when I'm free motion quilting, and you might want to too, because you don't want to get up once you're sitting down and you're in the groove, right? I keep a pair of needle nose metal tweezers close by. This helps me get that bobbin thread up. As my top thread pulls it up, I go in with these and pull it up the rest of the way. These are really nice to have. I always have a pair of curved tiny snips close by. You don't want snips that are straight across because you could
cut right into your quilt top, and you don't want to do that. The curved scissors really do help not to put any other cuts in your fabric that you don't want to happen. I always wear a pair of cheap dollar store gardening gloves when I free motion quilt. They have a grippy on the palm side of the glove, and it's just cotton. They're not hot at all. You can buy free motion quilting gloves if you like. They are out there, just another option. And I've gone through quite a few pairs of these because honestly they do wear out. They're cotton and, you know, but a few bucks. I've never owned a professional pair of free motion quilting gloves, so I don't know the difference between them, but I do know that my $1 gardening gloves work good. I don't have any issues at all with them. And why do you need gloves? Or should you not wear gloves or wear gloves? Well, I think you should, because I've tried it both ways. You want to be able to have full control of that quilt top at all times. You want to almost strong arm it. I know it sounds weird, but it's true. You don't want it to get away from you, because the first time that it does and you have to unpick your stitches, you'll be like, oh yeah, I remember what Tracy said. Strong arm that quilt top. You better believe it. I mean, I could say so many funny things right there, but I'm just gonna move on. I also keep a bunch of ready to go bobbins. If I'm doing a free motion quilting on a huge quilt, the last thing I want to do is stop and wind a bobbin. You also should have an extension table or something larger than just that free arm area on your sewing machine to be able to free motion quilt on. You're not going to want a free motion quilt on such a tiny space, so you definitely want something that extends out beyond you. Some people drop their sewing machines into drop-in tables to where they have the whole table. That would be awesome. I wish I had that, honestly. I even bought a bigger extension table for this sewing machine to be able to free motion quilt sideways. I mean, this machine's awesome. My point is, put on your extension table if you have it, and if you don't, you may want to get one that goes with your machine, or if you're shopping for a new sewing machine, make sure that it has one. Here is a quilt sandwich that I put together, and typically a quilt sandwich is a backing, some batting, and then your quilt top over top. When you go to baste your whole quilt together, it's always a good rule of thumb to have the backing larger than the batting and the batting larger than the quilt top. So the quilt top being the smallest piece of fabric in the whole thing. There is a reason for that. Sometimes when you stitch, you can shift fabric, and if it all shifts to one side and goes over top of the batting or over top of that backing, you're going to end up being upset because you're gonna have to cut that off, or you're gonna have to unpick, or it's just gonna be a mess. It's just good to have some room to work within. When I first started free motion quilting, I doodled a little bit, but I didn't really, not much really. I just went for it and just made up a bunch of quilt sandwiches. Well, I wasted a lot too that way. I mean, you just can if you play a lot like I did. So I ended up coming up with a hack on how to practice free motion quilting without making the quilt sandwiches. I will link a video to that at the end. It uses a dry erase marker that you would connect here. You take the needle out, and then you make like a vinyl quilt top, so to speak. You move it around the dry erase marker just like you would if you were free motion quilting, giving you that muscle memory. And then you could just erase it when you were done and then do it again. I mean, it's really awesome. You'll have to check it out. But for now, we're going to put this quilt sandwich underneath the needle. I'm going to show you how to drop the needle, grab the bobbin, pull it up, and all that. Things first, lift your presser foot up, take your quilt top, and put it underneath your sewing machine needle. Now I'm going to come over here off to the side a little bit because I want to test some stitches before we get going. And you should get in the practice of that too. Sometimes I'll make a whole swatch ahead of time and practice on a little piece of it just to make sure my stitches are correct. But here I'm just going to show you how I do it off to the side.
The first thing I'm going to do is drop my presser foot. And I'm off here, off to the side. Now you can see here that flows underneath there. Nothing's catching it. I'm going to hold my thread back out of the way. Pull it toward the back. Then I'm going to drop my, oh, I better turn my machine on first. How about that? There you go. Oh, what I'm going to do is drop my needle down, and then I'm going to lift it back up. Now I'm going to lift my presser foot up. I have my tweezers handy. This is my top thread right here. I'm going to pull on that, and you can see that thread coming up. That is my bobbin thread. I'm gonna pull that out here. See it right there. That is the bobbin thread. I'm gonna pull quite a bit out. I'm gonna take this top thread, I'm gonna push it behind that little foot there, that open toe. And then pull my threads toward the back. So what if you get kind of mixed up and you pulled your bobbin thread up and you've kind of pulled things out like this? What are you gonna do? So you're just going to find those tails again and hold on to them and just push your sandwich back to where you see that thread coming up out of that hole. Give it a little tug so there's no slack in there, and put that thread that's coming up out right underneath where that needle is. Pull your thread to the back and then drop your presser foot right over top of that. Your needle should be right over top of where that came out of. The first thing I do is hold that thread back there. I'm going to put a couple of lock stitches in there, and you can see here I'm going to move back and forth a little bit. If I lift up, you can see here, that's all I've done so far. That's it. So I'm going to leave this on here for a second, and I'm going to show you how I trim that. I'm going to, with my presser foot down, always make sure your presser foot is down. Sometimes you'll be making crazy stitches and you'll be like, what am I doing wrong? I did everything right. Well, you forgot to, guess what? Put your lever down on the back of your foot. So always be mindful of that back here. The lock stitches are in there. My thread is toward the back, so I'm just going to move away from where that thread initially came out of. How I'm doing that is by pushing the fabric back and pressing my foot pedal at the same time. I'm going to lift my presser foot and turn this around so you can see this. So you can see that right there, that thread coming out. I'm going to snip that. This is where those curved scissors come in handy. And that eliminates that thread. Just so you know, I don't bury my threads at all. I'm just not a show quilter, and I know a lot of show quilters do bury their threads. I mean, a lot of people that aren't show quilters do, but I just don't. I have so much fun free motion quilting that I just don't worry about it. I snip there where I can, and then I will show you how I end it when we're done. Let's put this back here like so, and I'm going to check my stitches again. Now I will put my free motion quilting gloves on, my grippies. Let's check these stitches. I'm just going to do the same motion again. I'm going to just go straight. I think we're going to be fine with those stitches. What you're looking for here is equal stitches. You don't want one stitch way bigger than the other. You just want them to be nice and separate and pretty. And Juki's always give a pretty stitch. It's just hands down the best. So I think we're good on our tension and all of that. My friend Gigi over at Juki Junkie, she has a great way of telling her students how to free motion quilt stitches nice and evenly. Her method is so genius. I mean, honestly, it's so smart. She says to put your sewing machine speed at 30% and put your pedal to the metal on your sewing machine foot pedal. Now what that does is it eliminates your thought process on how far you have to press your foot down on your foot pedal and how you have to lift off of it and all that. You just put your pedal to the metal, you set your speed, and then you just go for it. So I'm going to try what she said first, just so you can get an idea of what that looks like. The first thing you need to realize is that your hands need to be right in front of you at all times. See how my hands are right here? I'm forming like a big, huge square in front of me. You never want to take your hands too far out of the area, like one way over here or way up here or way over here. You want to keep that area as you're shifting and going, and you'll see what I mean as we get going. So the first thing I want to try is just making some straight lines. So we're just going to go pushing the fabric away from us. So I've just pushed the fabric away from me. Now I'm going to pull it toward me. I'm going to stop, shift my hands to where they're comfortable right in front of me. And I'm pressing down, not real hard on the fabric, but enough to where I am strong holding it. And my pedal's to the metal, and I'm at 30% speed. At this moment, you want to gain how your groove is going to go with your free motion quilting. For me, I need to be a little bit faster than that, so I'm just going to up it just a little bit. And you're just going to play, just play. Never get so afraid that you can't stop. I mean, you feel like you can't stop sometimes, but really you can. Just stop. If you feel like things are getting out of control, just stop. So let's see. I'm just going to keep going with some lines. I'm going to up my speed just a little bit more. So I'm still going pedal to the metal. So I guess that's a good rule of thumb. Keep pressing down and keep shifting your speed level to where it feels your most comfortable. You'll know when it's uncomfortable because you won't be able to control how fast your brain's going with your hands, with your foot. I mean, your foot you don't have to worry about if you're pedal to the metal, but you know what I mean. I mean, even making lines is fun. So you're making your lines, and then you're just going to go into like a squiggle. You're going to stop. Hands up. Stop. You see how far my hands are away from me? That's about as far as I go. And then bring it back to right in front of you. Hands. Stop. Move hands. Stop. Move hands. And you want to make sure your needle stopped all the way before you move your hands, because sometimes you'll underestimate that and things will totally get away from you. Make a curve. You go in to try a little bit of meandering. I think that's kind of hard for beginners, but you can try it. I mean, just play and have fun with it, really. That's the main thing. And with a quilt sandwich this small, you can really maneuver this wherever you want in whatever angle. So we've done some straight lines, we've done some squigglies, and we did a little meander. Honestly, that's all you have to do is just play around with it. I mean, it's so much fun. The biggest thing is just stopping when you feel uncomfortable. My speed is at just over 50% with full pedal to the metal. Stop. Hands. stop, hands. Stop. See, I was getting a little away from myself there. I was getting way over here with this hand. Stop. Oh, that was so bad. Okay. So let me go just a little bit faster. I'm probably in between the half mark and the full-on rabbit. Stop. 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 I mean, literally, this is all I do is just play, or I used to anyways. I don't get to play like this as much anymore unless I'm trying something new out, but typically, I mean, there's only so many things I know how to do. You know, you just have fun with it. And I've also been told that you can write your name, and that will help because your name, you've done that your whole life. If you were born in my generation anyways, nowadays they don't know how to write their name. So, you know how to write your name in cursive, and you can go ahead and try that. You're looking for a groove almost, like for you to get into a zone where your hands are moving at the same speed, you're creating the same stitch. Now, the other thing that's good to know in free motion quilting is echoing. So you say you make a design, like I just, created like absolutely nothing really, but you just go around it and echo. That is such a good filler. I use that probably, 75% of the time. So I'll show you what that is. So you go up and you just follow around the design that you just made. One thing with free motion quilting that's important to know that was messing me up, when I would take a corner real quick or a curve real quick, I would see eyelashes, they call them. It would mess up my tension. Let me see if I can replicate it here. I don't know if I can. It's been so long since I made that mistake, but let me see if I can show you what I mean here. It really messes up your stitches. That's why you really want to maintain even when you go around something. So let me just see. I'm gonna try it right now. Like I would do that. I would like really push through and it would be crazy. And I'd be like, why is my stitches messed up? Well, I don't know, Juki's hard to mess up, I guess. But the stitches are way out of whack there because I just did that. But it would pull up and sometimes it would break my thread. And I'd be like, oh my goodness, what am I doing here? Slow down, Tracy. So just slow down, take your time. have a ton of fun doodling, right? I think these stitches right here, Gigi would be proud of. I really do. Maybe not. I still got work to do. Oh, well. Okay, so I was going to show you how I do not bury my threads. So I'm right here and I'm at the end. All I'm going to do is stop, go back and forth, making a knot and securing that in there. And then I'm just going to simply cut my thread. Most quilters are probably gasping at me right now. Oh, well, that's the way I do it. And if you want to bury your thread, you can totally do that. I'm just not the one to show you that. That's all. But you can find tons of people who will show you how to do that. So you lift this over like so. And you can see there's where my machine cut the threads and tied a little knot and all that. I'm going to go in with my snips and cut it off. Is it the prettiest? No, probably not. Is anyone going to see it? No, probably not. Here are those stitches on the back. Not too bad. It's really hard to go over everything where it concerns free motion quilting in just a short video. I hope that I've inspired you to at least try to start if you haven't started already, or if you've started and stopped because you got discouraged. I hope it inspired you to start back up. You let me know which quilter you are in the comments. Until next time on the Sewing Channel, take care.